Well, Chuck, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program this evening. Good talking to you.
My pleasure, Cam.
And I'm sorry we didn't have time to talk with you on Friday about this, but while the NRA has filed a lawsuit in Illinois challenging the ban on self-defense with a firearm outside of the home, the NRA and the California Rifle and Pistol Association Foundation have filed a lawsuit in California to force the LAPD to comply with the court-ordered CCW permitting process. And this goes back to the 90s, right?
Early 90s, yeah. You know, before there were two lawsuits filed back in the early 90s, the Lake lawsuit and the Ascenza lawsuit. And before those lawsuits were filed, the LAPD had not issued a concealed weapon permit, not one single permit, for 18 years.
Whoa.
Then Willie Williams became the police chief, and he had come in from Philadelphia, so he was not familiar with the California Penal Code. He was only familiar with the Pennsylvania Penal Code. And he couldn't pass the post exam, the police officer certification test. So the police commission had to give, the LA Police Commission had to give him a CCW. Well, once they did that, they set the bar for equal protection challenges because he had no more need for a CCW than any average citizen. As a police chief, he had armed LAPD officers at his disposal 24 hours a day. He didn't need a gun permit. But by giving him one, they set a standard that could be applied for anyone else in a similar situation to get a permit. So they filed these lawsuits. Second Amendment Foundation funded Lake, and the individual plaintiffs funded Ascenza. And both got consent decrees out of the city of L.A. A consent decree is basically a court order, an agreed-to stipulated court order. And as part of that, the city is supposed to make CCW applications available at every station house. They're supposed to make a copy of the consent decree that lays out all the processes and the rights that folks have in pursuing a CCW from the city of L.A.
Okay.
That tells them about the judgment and what the city has to do. And they're also supposed to have the ability to go to a citizen review panel and plead their case, and then the city is supposed to, in good faith, listen to the recommendations of that review panel and see if whether the parameters of good cause that are set out in this judgment, and basically the city agreed that good cause would exist under certain circumstances, like if you were carrying a lot of cash or stuff like that, which they had never agreed to before. Mm-hmm. So if people are denied, they're supposed to be able to go in front of a civilian review panel. Then the chief is supposed to listen to what the panel says. Well, when Willie Williams was there, he listened to the panel's recommendation quite frequently, and they made applications available at the LAPD substations, and they complied. But over the years, they just start to ignore it. Every time the chief changes, they decide that they're not going to follow that policy. So over the years, there's been we almost held Chief Parks in contempt years ago for not issuing these things. Then the city again promised that they would comply, and they're back to their old habits again. They're still not complying. So all these years later, the city of L.A., it's still like pulling teeth just to get them to follow the law that they agreed to follow. So it's frustrating out here.
Yeah, no kidding. So the city will have 30 days to respond, I'm guessing?
About that, and if they don't, we still have this contempt proceeding to hang over their head, which is sort of quasi-criminal, and I hope that the city will realize that they are bound by this. They have to, nobody's above the law. The city's not above the law. They agreed to a stipulation. They agreed to an order. The court imposed that order, and over the years they've been slapped and told to comply with the order, and they just ignore it again. But folks need to understand, this is not the same as the Illinois case or the Peruta case out of San Diego. Those are Second Amendment challenges. Mm-hmm. And this may morph into a Second Amendment case depending on how things work out in some of those other CCW cases. But for now, this is just basically... it's obey the law, L.A. As it exists right now. Before there's even the sea change that I expect will come about through the Second Amendment, mm-hmm. And how that will change CCW issuance in California eventually. But for now, you have to at least comply with the law that you agreed to. So it's just You just got to keep them honest, and it's a never-ending struggle.
No kidding. Well, Chuck, thank you again, sir, for coming on the program. And I know with as many lawsuits as we have going on right now in California, we'll be talking again before too long.
Absolutely, Cam. We have things happening every day this week, and you'll see the alerts, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Chuck Michel, California civil rights attorney, joining us here on Cam & Company.